and welcome to Bring It On, your Whitman Hanson Cable Access Show. My name is Bob Hayes, and I'm going to be a show host for today's show. I have with me Chad Peters. He's the Director of Technology in the Whitman Hanson Regional School District. And today we're going to be talking about computers, updating of the computers, and all of the different aspects of the computers at Whitman Hanson. As you know, I'm the chairman of the school committee, and one of the reasons, and I'm also the host of the show, but one of the reasons we're doing this show is there's been a lot of questions about the funding sources, why we're doing it, how we're doing the upgrades, why we're doing the upgrades. Is it something that should be in our regular operating budget? Should it have been brought to the town meeting? So we're hoping to answer a bunch of those questions today, and that's why I have Chad with me. Chad, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Chad, can you give the people watching today just a little bit of background of your pre-Whitman Hanson and Whitman Hanson duties and what you do as a director of technology?
Yeah, I've been at Whitman Hanson for a little over 16 years now. I've kind of been in multiple roles, anywhere from regular desktop technician, and now I'm actually the director of technology. So I've been in that role for a little over 3 years now. Yeah, so that's my kind of roles that range from anywhere from, dealing with the schools and the computers right at the schools, and now I'm running the department which has 5 people in it. In our department, actually, we have the 5 people that work there. We do all the technology needs for all 7 schools, the regional high school, the 2 middle schools, and the elementary schools in both towns. Our department also supports all the technology needs for the town of Hanson. Some people don't really know that, but we offer our services to the town of Hanson, all their departments, anywhere from the police station, fire station, town hall, and everything.
There was a certain point when we did both Whitman and Hanson, didn't we? And then they hired somebody to do all the Whitman technology?
Yeah, back about 4 years ago, we were doing both the town of Whitman and the town of Hanson, all of their departments, everything. And then I think 3 years ago, they hired someone that worked in our department as the director of technology just for the town of Hanson. So now town of Whitman, sorry, yeah. So we just do the town of Hanson now.
Great. Okay, well, today's show we're going to talk about computers and the funding, and you heard my little intro, yeah. So the people can get somewhat of an idea of what's going on with this, because it came up at town meetings and all of the above. As most people know, and a lot of people don't though, because we keep saying it's the new school. Whitman Hanson Regional High School is now 10 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really kind of hard to believe that it was 10 years ago that building was built and opened. And it has the same computer technology as 10 years ago. And for most people that know, if you own a smartphone, this phone that I'm holding in my hand is much different than it was 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago, to do what that phone does, you'd need a room full of computers just to figure out what that phone is physically capable of today. So, Chad, could you walk us through some of that, the 10 years ago and where we're going? Because a lot of people have misconceptions and they ask questions, and it's just they need the knowledge. They need to know.
Yeah, it was a good point that you brought up that phone, because we were talking with one of the groups in the Whitman PTO at Conley School this week, giving them an update on the computers and the warrant articles and the ballot. And that actually came up was your cell phone actually has more technology in it than the desktops and the computers now, because they're 10 years old. The old technology, you actually have more processing power in your typical smartphone and cell phone now. So I think that's just a good point for people to kind of get a good visualization and realization of what's actually there, what's in your hand and what's actually in the computers in the schools. But so we started with the computers 10 years ago. Back in 2004, we started a program to replace all of our equipment in all the schools. We had a program for we did a lease program where we had the computers. We bought them for 4 years. After then the 4 years, we built it into the budget, so it's a yearly cost. After the 4 years, we'd send the computers back, get a new set of computers, and go for another 4 years, and then kind of just follow that structure on and on. But back in 2007, 2008, we ran into some tough financial times. The budgets got crunched, and we had to make some tough decisions, as you know, when it comes to budget time. So what ended up happening was the budget lines that we had in there for the technology replacement started getting cut and cut and cut. So we've been putting it back into our budgets for the last 5 years now. And every year it's just tough budgetary times. We don't have enough revenue coming in. We need to make cuts. And when you have to weigh it, you weigh the cuts between new technology, replacement computers, or keeping some of the instructional teachers in the classroom. And the teachers are always, obviously, going to be the most important part of the district. So we end up, cutting the technology lines year after year after year. So that's kind of the reason. That's kind of the background on where we're trying to replace it every year. And those are the difficulties that we come into, is the financial aspect of keeping our money in our operating budget. And that's where we looked at it again this year, and we worked with the school committee and yourself to say, okay, instead of the operating budget, which is very tight for us, what other avenues do we have? And what we looked at was going into the capital expense, which is bringing the capital items to the towns of Whitman and Hanson to say, we need to replace our computers. They're over 10 years old, and how can we make that happen? So what we did was we brought that to on a warrant article. The school committee passed to put a warrant article on both towns' town meeting floors on May 2nd to fund a program for refreshing all the desktops in the district. And then, as you know, on May 2nd, they voted overwhelmingly, almost unanimously, I believe, in both towns to support that. And now it's going to the ballot on May 16th.
Well, Chad, a lot of people think that this is something that you're just going to run in with this $1 million budget, so to speak, and run out and buy a whole bunch of laptops and we're going to be all fixed. And that's not the case. Can you come and explain some of, because I know that there's mainframe stuff and it gets very technical, and I'm glad that you're here with us today to talk about this, because the technicalities of how it works, eludes me, so to speak, in some of the terms. So I don't want anyone confused.
Yeah.
We're doing this show so people will get a better idea of exactly what's going on in the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District.
Yeah. So what we did was we did a lot of research, and we took an approach where, what are our options? How do we make this happen? We can either, on the one hand, do what we've been doing and people have been doing since the 90s. You take a desktop computer and you replace it with another one, the same capabilities, and just newer technology, and we go from there. That's typically 4 to 5 year lifespan, and then another 4 or 5 years you got to look at that again to replace. So we said, okay, what are our options? And we're actually in a good situation and in a bad situation because our desktops are all old. We have the opportunity now to replace everything and to start over. So what we looked at was what's called virtualization. And virtualization, what it does in layman's terms, is take your computer and your hard drive and your processing, and instead of putting it in your end device where the teachers and the students are, we're going to take all those hard drives and processing power and put it into our data center in servers and storage. So what we're end up buying is a lot of processing power and storage, a lot of hard drives, something people can relate to with their home computer, So we're taking all those hard drives and processing power, we're putting into a big central server in our data center in the high school. And what's going to end up happening now is we're going to turn all of our old PCs that we have right now, we're going to turn them into thin clients. So they're just going to be used for the monitor, keyboard, and mouse. And what's going to happen is when someone wants to log into their desktop, the server, everything we just built, is just going to send a picture of the desktop and everything on there. So that PC and that computer is just really going to be a screen. And it's just going to be receiving a picture of everything, where now everything is going to be processed and the data is all going to be stored in the data center on these storage and servers. So what that gives us is great flexibility to not only reuse the desktops that we have, because they're literally just going to be monitors.
Before we go any further, just to interrupt you, by saving the desktops and the monitors and going to this virtualization, does it save money?
So
I want a dollar figure.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, when you're spending over $1 million, people need to understand that this was very well thought out and researched and had background, and that's kind of what I'd like them to hear.
Yeah.
Because in layman's terms, I can quickly sum it up. You're putting the brain in the other room, and you're putting a high-tech server in there to send the virtualization out to a computer that's in another
Perfect.
room.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice, easy analogy. I understand it. It's almost like this.
Exactly.
This has a brain up in Appleville,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
And people don't like to look at it like that, but it really does. I mean, it isn't all in here. It's going quickly
Yeah.
to a processing center. It's getting sent back, and it's making its move there. I just think that people need to know that. So I want to kind of
Yeah.
go into that a little bit.
When we first started this, we priced everything out, and we looked at what the cost analysis is going to be on a desktop replacement 1-for-1, and then the virtualization. We're not going to be on. There's no real savings. They're really the same amount of money. So that's what gave us the best opportunity. So they're both the same cost, and now we're looking at what's going to be the best thing for us, best opportunity, best experience for the desktop end user, the students learning, what's going to be best for them. So that's where we figured the virtualization, because what's going to happen is it gives us the best flexibility with our money that we're going to be spending. The virtualization, because we're spending everything in that data center and that storage, it's going to last us up to 10 years. So now we go from 4 to 5 on those desktop computers to 10 years with the server and the storage. So we're going to maintain that, and that thing's going to last us 10 plus years. So that's one big bonus. The other one, the flexibility that we're going to get from this. Now, like I said, we're going to be using those monitors and those computers just as something to view your desktop. But when those die, when those need to be replaced, we're going to replace them with what's called a zero client. It's like a $200 PC that just has a flash drive in it. It's probably going to be similar to like your cell phone. And we'll connect that to the monitor, and now that's just a consumable device that's going to be paid out of our operating budget, which is very easy to replace as part of that budget. The flexibility is great when now, because we're in virtualization, the student doesn't have to be at that desktop. The student can be at any device, any operating system that they have or that we have. We can use an iPad, a Mac, a laptop, a Chromebook, any device, because virtualization, like I said, is just sending that image, and it can the virtualization that we're using will literally talk to any device, any operating system, whatever. So the flexibility is really great that the student not only doesn't have to be in the classroom, they can be at grandma's house, at home, in the town library. They can log in with just a web page, and they can get their same desktop experience that they would have if they were in their computer lab. And not only that, they can get their files and any software that we have at the school that they typically use. One of the big things that we use in the district is Microsoft Office. A student needs to write a report or something, they use Word. Sometimes, a lot of people might not have that program at home, but when we have virtualization, they can literally log on from any device that they want. They'll get their desktop, and they'll also have that software package, say Microsoft Office. If it's something different, a specialty software package that we have in the school that they might use, it's all going to be on their desktop for them. So that's great flexibility, and it gives them a great user experience no matter where they are. So I think that's a lot of the benefits that we weighed. And like you said earlier, what did we do before? We've, over the last 3-4 months, we've been doing an assessment and on our desktops that we use now, what the students use, what they use for software, what they do for browsing, what they do, all that stuff. It calculated all of these numbers and came up with all that. And I don't want to get too detailed, but it gave us a good report and to say, are we eligible to do virtualization? How would it work in our environment? And the numbers came out really well, where we'd be able to take advantage of all the stuff that we use with a small number of software packages that we can't or won't be really good virtualized. And so what we did as part of this project is we also built in the replacement of a small number of PCs. We have a lot of special ed type software that's not really well virtualized. So what we're going to do as part of the project is buy some desktop computers to fill in those areas where virtualization doesn't work. In the main offices where they use the security cameras, the software that we use for that, which is not good virtualization. So we'll end up replacing a small number of PCs as well as the servers and the storage for the virtualization project.
Okay, so it looks like it's going to give the students a much greater flexibility to have virtualization. Does it give the parents any type of flexibility that they don't have now? I know parents are very concerned. I know this is a 21st century learning experience, and parents are very concerned about it. I mean, I hear it as a school committee member. They want to be able to see what their children are doing. They're very, very concerned. That there's a large group that's very concerned about people getting knowledge about what happens with students. Is there security? Can you get into that a little bit?
One of the benefits for the virtualization is it goes back to us having everything in our data center. So, all the hard drives are in that data center and everything is stored in there. So now that gives us better capability to keep all the data secure. Right now when you go out and use a computer, all your stuff is stored on that desktop, on that hard drive, whether you're at home or whatever, and everything's on there. So you have to secure every single piece of equipment like that. With virtualization, we're going to just take and be able to secure all of that hard drive in the data center. So now when the student's logging in from a computer within the district or their home, all the data is still in our data center. So we're protecting it in there and it's secure, and we're keeping it private. And nothing's going to be loaded directly on the machines that they're on. It's all going to still stay there because it's just sending that picture out now where all the data is still staying in there. So it definitely gives us a better ability to keep the data private and secure.
Okay, so just again, and I'm not trying to be redundant, a student logs on. Say you go in the morning. You could look at a specific student's activity the day before?
No, because all of their data is going to be there, but it's still the same experience where you're logging into the computer and you're getting your typical things you log in with. That's really what we're doing now, is just transitioning from the desktop to virtualization. So everything else is still going to be the same for them. When the student uses, when they log in, they'll in a sense see the same exact things as they do now and they did in the past. It's just going to be much quicker for them because we're going to speed up the login speeds and the processing because everything's going to be processed in the data center as opposed to on the PCs, which are going to be a lot slower. So their experience should be pretty much the same what they see, but much quicker.
Okay, because security is also a very, very big concern. Is this system, I know you touched on it and you said it's much more secure. Explain that just a smidge of how you see it. I know students tend to interact with each other. Yep. And they do it, they'll be sitting in the library and I'll see both of them on computers side by side and they're going back and forth, looking, the sharing and caring thing. And that sometimes becomes problematic. Is any of that changing?
No. We're still going to try to keep the same user experience. When they're logging in, they're still going to get in and do the same things. What we're protecting by this is that their caching of information or logging and keeping of their personalized information. That's all going to be on the going to be stored in our data center now on those servers, as opposed to any device that they're physically on, and so that better enables us to protect it because we're protecting it in a larger scale, but all in one spot. So the data is going less places. It's really just staying in one spot, not really going anywhere. Okay,
if you look at what you handed out at town meeting for the investment in virtualization, and you look at the totals between the server, the storage, the software, and all of it, it comes up to kind of a big number. And could you just go over it and break down? I mean,
sure.
We both have the same thing. The first one is server, storage, and software, $649,000.
Yeah. So what we're looking at, and what we handed out was just a breakdown of all the numbers and this kind of the specifics on what we're going to be purchasing. So like I said, when my description earlier, the servers, the storage, and the software, that's the physical piece that we're going to be buying. We're going to buy, it's a 42-inch rack, and it's going to have, and what we handed out was some pictures of exactly what we're going to be getting. So it kind of gives you a visualization of that.
Which is great.
Yeah.
People need to see it because when you're spending $1.4 million, in technology has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, they go, wow, we had a whole room full of stuff for $1 million before. Now we've got this, and it was XYZ. But as they say, smartphones, smarter computers, virtualization. So if you can go over that just quickly, the breakdown, because people like to, I want everybody to understand this so they get a good grasp of what's going on.
Yeah.
That's what we do these shows for.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So the first line was just the physical rack of all the storage and the servers and things like that. The next line, the virtualization. That's what makes everything happen in the background. That's the software, that's your licensing, similar to if you wanted to go out and buy, like Microsoft Office. That's what it is. It's your licensing cost, the software that allows you to use it.
Royalties pay, so to say, for the people who created the package.
Yeah.
It's the royalties.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you buy a record, the Beatles used to get a piece of it.
Yeah.
Or Taylor Swift, when they were doing that Pandora thing or whatever they were doing, it had some licensing issues with people skirting the licensing.
Yeah.
So this is what you're paying for.
Yeah.
The person who invented the software, so to speak.
Yeah, and it goes one step further. It would be you buying the record, Taylor Swift's record, and you get every other record she's going to create from now until she's done.
Okay.
So this also gives us the ability
infinite.
So it gives us the support and all the software updates for 3 years.
Okay,
Everything we're doing in the project is a 3-year cost, all the maintenance, the support, everything. It's all going to be included in that. So that's another great part of this. So just going down the list, the district core network router. Back 10 years ago when we first moved in the high school, we outfitted the building with the networking equipment and the district core. The district core is actually one of the most important parts of our network because it's the hub and the central spoke of all of our schools.
Of all 7 buildings.
Of all
the
7
other
buildings.
7 buildings.
Yeah, all 7 included, yeah. So all of our networking traffic and our and everything goes through this one core. So when someone at the Conley School wants to use the network, they connect to this core and then they go out to the internet. Someone from McQuon wants to, access
it's the hub,
email.
so to speak. It comes right through the high school. Okay,
very important.
I think we get that.
Yeah, very important.
So that technology's there.
So that's one piece that's going to make this whole thing work. The next part is an extension of that, which is the network switches. It's just the fingers and the arms off of this core router that we're going to have to replace to get rid of that 10-year-old technology that's kind of slowing everything down. Going down the list, the replacement lab computers. That was a piece of what I explained earlier, which was there's some applications, some things we do in the district, like the high school computer labs. They do a lot of like graphic programs, digital photography that are high-intensive software packages, CAD, things like that you really can't virtualize. So what we're going to end up doing is we'll buy just regular desktop, high-end desktop computers for them to use for those, and that's what that line is there for the computer labs.
You're basically covering a lot of things that virtualization doesn't cover it. You're making sure that people that want to do CAD and all of those other programs have a place to go. You're including every student. Because that's what one of the questions I had one of our citizens ask was, Bob, if my son or my daughter doesn't do this, how are they going to be included in this? And I think that's an important part to make sure that every student has a 21st century learning experience through this $1.4 million that we're trying to spend here.
Yeah, this touches every aspect of teaching and learning in the district because it not only does the end computers, it updates the network traffic, which entail if you bring in your laptop, if you bring in your phone and your student, and you want to use it, it's going to increase all of that for everyone. So it touches everyone. And the last one is just the specialty computers we talked about earlier. The main office ones with the security software, the special ed software that's not virtualized. Those are in the offices and in small classrooms that we're going to replace as well. And like you said, everyone is going to get touched by this upgrade. So they're all going to experience the upgrade and the improvement of that.
Okay, so the whole cost of the project is $1,470,000, and it's to be divided by the 2 towns. The town of Whitman is $836,500. The town of Hanson is $633,500. And these costs to each town are divvied up by how? How did they come up with these figures?
Yeah, what we did was we looked at the allocation of computers, for the individual schools, and we kind of broke the cost down for that, which gave us the town costs of the town buildings. And then when the high school came around, we took the total costs of all the items for the high school, and that came to $675,000. And then we used the assessment numbers that are built in as part of the regionalization, and we divvied the costs up that way: 58% for Whitman and 42% for Hanson.
So number of students, you just break it right down to the cost, the per pupil cost.
Yeah.
The same as we break out a budget at Whitman Hanson Regional.
Exactly.
The towns are assessed by the per pupil cost, how many students there are in Whitman versus how many students there are in Hanson. Because that's another question that a lot of times gets lost in the shuffle, so to speak, of how do you come up with these figures? Because it's confusing. When you're talking $1.4 million, it's a lot of money, and people really need to know where their money's going.
Yeah.
As you know, the budgets are tighter, and everything's gotten tighter and more difficult, and so people really want to know where their money's going. It's funny, but we're moving right down to the end of the show. I guess one more question I have for you, and this is a question that people have asked me: length of use. Are we going to be looking in 3 years to do this again? I mean, this is a ton of money. How long do you see we're going to get out of this computer system?
Yeah, the virtualization, it's the lifespan of it is going to be 10 plus years, because we're buying the stuff that are going to be in the higher end. It's going to be in our data center. We're going to be maintaining that year after year, and it's commercial grade equipment, so that's going to last a lot longer. So we're going to get the 10 years out of it, and I think 10 years plus, because we don't really know where it's going to go after the 10 years. So we could be even longer. I mean, that's the hope, but we're definitely going for the 10 years plus out of this. So I think we're definitely getting our money's worth in the comparison of the 4 to 5 with the desktop computers.
Well, as you might know, ladies and gentlemen, and we're winding down to the very end, so I've got to kind of wrap it up, but think about cell phone technology 10 years ago and think about cell phone technology today. I know 10 years ago you were almost carrying around in a backpack, and now look at what we have and how it's changed. And hopefully virtualization, from the looks of what's going on, I've done a little bit on it because I said I'm on the school committee, so a lot of what you told me, I did the research and was happy to do, but it's really kind of an important factor of a 21st century learning experience. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, you can contact Chad Peters at the Whitman Hanson Regional School District. You can call and ask for him personally. He'd be glad to answer any and all questions you have, because again, this is what we're here for. This is an informational show today, and we want you to get the most out of it. If you need to contact me, and feel free to, you can contact me at bobhayes4433 at gmail.com, or you can call me on my cell phone at 617-538-0189. And ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to contact Chad. As you can see, he's a wealth of knowledge. He has no issues whatsoever trying to answer your questions. He's very, very approachable. And these are the things that they've done the research. They did all the assessments of where the students were going and how they were getting there. And it appears that this could last a long time and do a wealth of good for students in teaching, and not just students, but for the teachers also. It gives them better equipment to give you a better learning experience. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Bring it on. We'll be back. Thank you for watching.